While walking along top of Sharp Mountain in 1791, Philip Ginther kicked up a piece of black stone that later turned out to be called anthrite coal. This discovery paved the way for $1 million industry that thrived for more than a century and spawned the birthplace of Summit Hill. In early 1827, a 9-mile stretch of the Switchback Gravity Railroad was built for the purpose of hauling coal from Summit Hill to the Lehigh River to Mung Chunk. By the end of the century, the Switchback Gravity Railroad was the second tourist attraction, only second best to Niagara Falls. Many of the early buildings are no longer standing, but thanks to the postcards and photographs of the time, many images of Summit Hill's town and lost places have been well preserved. Welcome to the telling tales of Summit Hill's historical conservation. Now, I couldn't have done this project without the help of this book, Summit Hill Images of America. Written by Lee Mance, he and Summit Hill's Historical Society put all the photos that I'll be using for this video. Now, much of America's key history is lost, and people like Lee Mance and Summit Hill's Historical Society are doing their best to conserve our history. By doing this, I hope to inspire you to personally go out to your town to look at the history and to see how important it was and still is to the overall inner workings of America. Now, the coal that Grounder found was brought to Philadelphia by Colonel Jacob Weiss, which sparked the attention of two other men, Michael Hilgaze and Charles Sayce. These three will go to form the Lehigh Mine Company, with Pennsylvania selling more than 10,000 acres to the company in 1793. Now, getting the coal out was the easy part. The first step was to improve the Lehigh Valley River. And in 1820, the first shipment of coal was sent to Philadelphia. That shipment was 365 tons. Since the War of 1812, America boycotted English coal. With this first shipment of 365 tons of coal, it started the first industrial revolution. This will also spark the invention of the Gravity Switchback Railroad, which main purpose was to haul coal from Summit Hill to Mung Chunk and then to Jim Thorpe. However, after 1872, the Switchback Gravity Railroad was no longer needed. Now, some of the most famous people to ride this railroad was Ulysses S. Grant and Thomas Edison, who, when asked if it should be electrified, he said it was fine the way it was. This brings us to a first stop in Summit Hill, Ludlow Park. And right behind me is Ludlow's monument. Now, many of the old businesses and buildings are now gone, but newer ones and more important ones get put up in their place, like Summit Hill's Digital Fire Company, #1, on the site that was once Summit Hill's Armory. Now, right next to it used to be the Eagle Hotel. This hotel was the town favorite in 1950. The hotel was a site for many boxing match, basketball games, and ballroom dances. Unfortunately, it was razed for the Mont Chunk Silk Company. And now the building is just a shell of what it once was. The earliest known education in this town started in 1830, with his first teacher being George Adams, who taught a 4-month term. However, in 1845, free public school became mandatory, which classes were now divided by 6 grades. The school's bell is currently in Ludlow Park. Oh, and we are on the site for the Lincoln Building. It was just raised back in 1962 for the postal office.
Up next is called a Scroll Through Town, where we look at the town's before and after pictures. On September 5th, 1914, the park was officially dedicated to the town and named Ludlow Park in honor of the Lehigh Coal and Navigation Company's Vice President Edwin Ludlow. Now, most of the landscaping to the park was done by the Lehigh Coal and Navigation Company engineer, and the lamps to the park were actually run on gas. The building on the corner is James Cannon's Bar, and the building 2 doors down was M&J Suits and Sons General Store. It is now the home of Summit Hill's Historical Society Museum. In 1902, the Zerbe family drew up plans for one of the finest buildings in town, and in 1920, the building was bought to continue to bottle alcoholic beverages after Prohibition. The house on the corner is Nolan's Music Store, and it later became the home to the Summit Hills Trust Company in 1920. This 1-story church building was built in 1872 and was the first Methodist church in Summit Hill. It was also ran by Reverend Henry Davis. The first Presbyterian church was built in 1846 and was remodeled in 1895. Its reverend was Richard Webster. On land purchased from the Lehigh Coal and Navigation Company, St. Paul's German Reformed and Lutheran Church was built in 1865. St. Joseph's Church was built in 1880, and it was known to be the mother church of the Panther Valley since it was the first Catholic church in the area.
Boy, did we cover a lot today. One can imagine what it was like to travel on the Switchback Railroad, or to ride the trolley through town, or to have everything you need possibly within city limits. The buildings and tracks may be gone, but Summit Hill's history forever lives on. I finished this video standing in Summit Hill's cemetery, surrounded by the families who cared enough to shape their town. And in a way, they also shaped America. Their histories and stories live forever in the names that they left behind and also their legacies. Thanks again to Lee Mans and Summit Hills Historical Societies for allowing me to show you and to portray the current side of Summit Hills history.